I was 9 the first time I was told my future was already decided. I was 9 years old, and I was sitting on the back porch steps, shelling peas into a bowl, the summer heat coming off the fields in slow, visible waves, when my aunt sat down beside me and told me the shape of my life. She did not call it that. She did not say, "Let me tell you the shape of your life." She said it the way Amish women say important things, sideways, folded into something ordinary, the way you fold a letter into an envelope so that what is inside is protected by what is outside. She said, "You are going to make someone a good wife someday, Miriam. You have your mother's hands." And then she picked up a handful of peas and started shelling beside me, and the conversation moved on to other things. And I sat there with my mother's hands and the bowl between my knees, and something had changed in the air around me in a way I did not have words for yet. I was 9. I did not know yet that what she had given me was not a compliment. I did not know yet that it was a map. I did not know yet that the territory it described had already been drawn before I was born, and that my job, the job I had been placed on those porch steps to begin learning, was not to choose a direction, but to walk the one that had been chosen, and to walk it with enough grace that no one ever had to tell me it had not been mine to begin with. My name is Miriam, and this is Miriam the Amish, the channel where I finally say the things my community would never allow me to say out loud. I grew up Old Order Amish in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and I left a few years ago. If you want to hear the truth about Amish life from someone who actually lived it, please subscribe, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. There is still so much I have not told you. Now let me explain something about the way an Amish girl is prepared for her life, because it does not begin at baptism, and it does not begin at courtship, and it does not even begin at the age when she is old enough to understand what is being prepared. It begins so early that by the time she is old enough to understand it, the preparation is already mostly complete. In my community, the life of an Old Order Amish woman followed a shape as fixed as the church calendar. You were born into a household with a particular structure, and that structure was the first thing you learned, before language almost, the way the house worked, who did what, who decided what the days looked like and what they were for. You watched your mother. You helped your mother. By the time you were 5 or 6, you had small but real responsibilities, carrying things, minding younger children, learning the particular choreography of a household that ran on human labor from before sunrise to after dark. By 8 or 9, you were a genuine contributor. By 12, you were capable of running significant portions of the household yourself. By 14, when your formal schooling ended, you were in most practical senses a woman of the house, able to cook for a family, preserve food for a winter, manage a kitchen garden, tend animals, care for infants. This was not considered deprivation inside my community. It was considered preparation, and in a purely practical sense, it was extraordinary preparation. I could do things at 16 that most English women my age had never attempted and would not know how to begin. I understood hard work at a cellular level. I understood the satisfaction of a thing done completely and well. I understood community and interdependence and the particular beauty of a life that does not waste anything. What I did not understand, because no one had given me the framework to understand it, was that all of this preparation had a single destination, not several possible destinations that I might choose between as I grew. 1. Wife and mother inside the community. That was the shape my aunt had described on the back porch steps when I was 9. You have your mother's hands, not your father's mind, not your grandmother's courage, your mother's hands, the hands that kneaded and scrubbed and stitched and tended, the hands that served. That was what had been decided. and I had been shelling peas into it since before I knew there was anything else to shell. I want to tell you what it felt like to grow up inside that shape, because I think this is the part that people outside closed communities find hardest to understand. It did not feel like a cage. I want to say that clearly because I think the cage image is too simple and too easy and lets everyone, including me, off the hook from understanding something more difficult. A cage is a thing you know you are inside. A cage has bars you can see and a door you can find even if you cannot open it. What I grew up inside was not a cage. It was a landscape. It was the only landscape I had ever seen, and when the only landscape you have ever seen is the one you were born into, you do not experience it as a limitation. You experience it as the world. There was a girl I grew up alongside, close enough in age that we moved through the same stages of that preparation together. She was bright in a way that showed itself even inside the constraints of an 8th grade education, quick with numbers, sharp with language, the kind of person who, in a different world, would have been told to go further and given the means to do it. I watched her over the years channel that brightness into the available shape, into her household management and her quilting precision, and the particular skill with which she organized the community frolics she hosted. She was extraordinary at everything the shape asked of her, and I always wondered, in the private part of my mind I was learning to keep very quiet, what she would have been extraordinary at if the shape had been larger. I asked my mother once, I was maybe 11, why school stopped at 8th grade. I asked it genuinely, not as a challenge, because I had not yet developed the internal language for challenge. I was simply curious in the way children are curious about the structures around them before they learn that some structures are not meant to be questioned. My mother said that more schooling than that would pull a young person away from the community and toward the English world, and that the English world had things in it that would make a plain life feel small and insufficient, and that it was kinder not to show a person a door they were not meant to walk through. I thought about that for a long time. I thought about it while I was shelling peas and tending animals and learning to make bread and doing all the things that were filling the shape my aunt had described. I thought about what my mother had said about the door, how seeing it was the danger, not the door itself, but the knowing it was there. I want to stop here because what I am about to tell you is the part of this story I have thought about most in the years since leaving, and I want you to stay with me through it. Please subscribe to Miriam the Amish, like this video, and turn on the notification bell, because what I understood the year I turned 23 about my 9-year-old self on those porch steps is something I think a great many people need to hear, whether they grew up Amish or not. I was baptized at 17. By then the shape was so thoroughly mine that I could not have told you where it ended and I began. By then I had been preparing for a specific life for so long that I had no clear sense of what I would have wanted if wanting had been fully available to me. The questions that might have told me, what do you love? What makes you feel most yourself? What would you choose if you could choose? Those questions had not been forbidden exactly. They had simply never been offered. And a question that is never offered does not feel absent. It feels like a question that does not exist. This is the mechanism I most want you to understand. The most complete form of preparation for a predetermined life is not one that forbids alternatives. It is one that makes alternatives unimaginable. You do not need to lock a door that no one can see. You do not need to forbid a choice that no one knows is available. If you build the landscape correctly, if you begin early enough and consistently enough, and surround a child with enough love and belonging and genuine beauty inside the available shape, she will walk toward the destination that has been chosen for her, not because she was forced, but because she has been shaped to experience it as her own desire. That is what happened to me. I desired the life that had been designed for me. Not entirely, not without the private questions I had learned to keep very quiet. but substantially, in the parts of myself I had been given language for, I wanted what I had been prepared to want, and it took me until I was well outside that life to understand that desire and freedom are not the same thing, that you can want something completely and still have been shaped to want it, that the wanting does not prove the choosing. A woman who had left a different plane community years before I left mine said something that I have returned to more times than I can count. She said, "The cruelest thing about being raised for a predetermined life is not that you are denied the alternatives, it is that by the time you are old enough to know alternatives exist, you have already been so thoroughly formed by the preparation that the alternatives feel foreign, feel dangerous, feel like a door to a place you were right to be kept away from." She said, "They do not need to forbid the door. They only need to make sure you have spent enough years becoming someone who does not believe the door is for her." In therapy, I found a phrase for what had begun on those porch steps when I was 9. My therapist called it anticipatory socialization, the process by which a person is shaped from an early age to fit a specific social role, to internalize its values, to experience its requirements as their own nature rather than external expectations. She said it is not unique to Amish communities. It happens in varying degrees in almost every culture that has strong expectations for women. What varies is the intensity and the totality. In my community, it was very intense and very total. By the time I was old enough to recognize the shape I had been built for, I had already been built for it so completely that recognizing it felt like recognizing myself. The work of leaving was not just physical. It was not just the bus ticket and the tin of money and the one bag. It was the much longer and harder work of learning to ask questions that had never been offered to me. What do I love? What makes me feel most myself? What would I choose if choosing was fully mine? These are not complicated questions in the abstract. They are among the simplest things one person can ask another. But when you have spent 24 years being prepared for a single destination, when the preparation has been so thorough that the wanting and the shaping have become indistinguishable, these questions are not simple at all. They are excavation. They are the careful, difficult work of trying to find the person who was there before the shape was built around her. I am still doing that work. I do not think it has an end exactly, but I know the shape of it now, and it is mine to know, and that difference, between a shape that was handed to me and a shape I am building myself, is not a small thing. It is the thing. If you grew up somewhere that prepared you so thoroughly for a specific life that by the time you were old enough to question it, you had already become it, I see you. If someone told you something on a back porch when you were 9 that turned out to be a map rather than a compliment, I see you. If you have ever tried to find the version of yourself that existed before the preparation and discovered it requires excavation rather than memory, I see you. You were not wrong for becoming what you were shaped to become. You were a child. You did not build the landscape. You were born into it. And the fact that you are asking the questions now, whatever now looks like for you, is not a failure to have asked them sooner. It is the beginning of the asking. And the asking is always, always worth starting. If this story reached something in you, please subscribe to Miriam the Amish, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss what comes next. There is still so much I have not told you. Until next time, choose your freedoms wisely. They might just save your life.